I've been told that Arsenal are leaning towards Sesko. Both players are basically waiting. They want to join Arsenal. It's all on Sancho now to either drop his wage, otherwise he could be in for a long summer. We know that Emi Martinez would like a move to Manchester United.
Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly and welcome to The Window, talkSPORT's daily video transfer update and your go-to guide for all of the biggest football moves. Coming up, we will be chatting all things Arsenal, the latest on Viktor Gyokeres, Emi Martinez, plus so much more. And joining me today is talkSPORT sports broadcaster and man in the know when it comes to transfers, Ben Jacobs. So Ben, first up, Arsenal have been pretty busy. Kepa Arrizabalaga, Christian Mosquera and Christian Norgard all would be smart signings, but none of them are attackers. Is this a bit concerning for Arsenal fans?
No, not concerning. I think Andrea Berto is new and Arsenal see their window as almost starting on July the 1st and they've done a fair amount of business already. I've said many times that by the end of the window, I expect Arsenal's spend to be not too far off Liverpool's. It's not a race to get business done and most sides are really just looking to have those names in when the pre-season starts. So Norgard, the Brentford captain, brings experience. That's a 15 million package with around 10 million up front. Martin Zubimendi, a long-standing target that was really more Edu than Berta. And now Arsenal are really starting to get moving both on their number 9 and also a left winger. It's that choice between Benjamin Sesko and Viktor Gyokeres, essentially. Andrea Berta is advancing both deals and he'd like to pay 70 million for each. And then he'll decide whether or not to proceed with Gyokeres or Sesko. Gyokeres would like to move to Arsenal. So with Sesko, he started following them on social media, but I'm led to believe that it'll be one, not both. And then on the left wing side, we still have to keep an eye on the Rodrigo situation. Kind of a dream target for Arsenal, but there'll be a meeting after the Club World Cup between Xabi Alonso and Rodrigo to determine his future with a fee potentially, if an exit is to happen, of around 90 million euros. I sense there that Real are prepared to sell. It's just about Rodrigo and whether or not he wants to leave the club. And then as we revealed yesterday on talkSPORT, Eberechi Eze, another target now on Arsenal's list, and that one could be a bit of a North London derby in terms of competition because Spurs are potentially in for Eze as well. 68 million release clause. It's quite complicated in terms of how you trigger it, but I'm told the payment terms are quite preferable there, and that 68 million pounds can be paid in 3 instalments. So keep an eye on Arsenal. They're going to be busy, and I don't think their lack of activity so far is too much cause for concern.
Realistically, if you had to pick one of the attackers they're linked to, is there one you think will be more likely to happen?
Well, like I said before, Andrea Berta likes to advance both deals and then sort of leverage them against each other. And I feel like price will be the final determination because both Gyokeres and Sesko prepared to agree terms with Arsenal, even though nothing is done yet. Gyokeres' wages are slightly higher, but both can fit into Arsenal's wage structure. So this is really all about the club-to-club negotiations. I've been told that Arsenal are leaning towards Sesko if they can get that 80 million release clause down to 70 million or so. But if they can't, they could pivot and turn their attentions to Gyokeres. And this is why, unlike Edu, who kind of picked a target and was very tunnel vision at times and meticulous to get it over the line, Berta's quite prepared to say to both clubs, if you don't come down in price, we've got other targets, and I'm sure it won't just be those two either. He'll have backups to Sesko and Gyokeres in case either they go elsewhere or the price doesn't change. But I'm led to believe that Arsenal have done so much groundwork on Sesko that if they can unlock that deal around the 70 million euros mark, they will proceed. But we certainly shouldn't be billing Gyokeres as a backup given his incredible numbers. And again, if Sporting honour the number a year ago in this pack that allows Gyokeres to leave for in and around 70 million euros, that might be seen as value too. But the key difference between Sesko and Gyokeres is a newer target on the radar since Andrea Berta's joined, and also the overall cost of that Gyokeres deal is higher because of the agent fees and the wages. So keep an eye on these club-to-club negotiations because both players are basically waiting. They want to join Arsenal, and therefore it is all going to be about that price and Berta trying to find value for money.
With Viktor Gyokeres, there were reports that Liverpool are interested. Is there much in this?
Well, I think Liverpool are just assessing their striker targets. The priority was always to bring in Milos Kerkos and Florian Wirtz and Jeremy Frimpong before that. And now Liverpool are about exits, and in particular Darwin Núñez. They're sticking to this 70 million euros valuation. It's a really clear situation with Darwin Núñez. He would like to move to Napoli. Napoli want Núñez, but you got to meet Liverpool's asking price, and that remains high. And it's informed by the fact that back in January, Al Nassr had an offer rejected for 70 million euros. So Liverpool don't want to go too far south of that number. Once Núñez departs, and that is the expectation, whether to Napoli or who knows, Saudi may return, then Liverpool in July will start to look for this new number 9. And at the moment, it's more of an internal conversation. I'm not aware of anything too significant yet between Gyokeres and Liverpool. Of course, they're aware of his talents in the same way that they've looked at a few other names like Hugo Ekitike. But right now, I think Liverpool are working out exactly what kind of budget, based on both the fact they've sort of stocked up quite a lot of money in previous windows. They walked away from the Jude Bellingham deal. They put over 100 million down for Moises Caicedo, and he went to Chelsea. So even having added Wirtz, there's more money to spend, but that number can go up if you bring in a healthy fee for a player like Darwin Núñez. And then in July, I think from Liverpool's perspective, they'll still work out the Alexander Isak situation. So there's two things here. One is Liverpool not wanting to give up on Alexander Isak, but two is the fact you can't move now because the situation with Newcastle isn't clear, and Liverpool will wait to understand, is there a right time and opportunity to move for Isak? And if there is, of course they'll place a bid, and that will be their priority to see whether that dream target is actually feasible. If there's not a window of opportunity because Isak signs a new deal or Newcastle don't give Liverpool any encouragement, then they'll move on. But I don't see Liverpool being in a rush or having quite as much urgency to add that new number 9 as perhaps Arsenal now or Chelsea with Liam Delap. They'll see whether there is a chance with Isak at the same time. They'll be looking at other names. Gyokeres and Liverpool isn't developing. Hugo Ekitike is maybe the one to watch. I think there's so much noise there about Manchester United and Chelsea, but it feels to me like Frankfurt are trying to create a bidding war to get their 100 million euros, and Liverpool don't really engage in those kind of tactics. So they're waiting, and if they move for Ekitike a little bit later in the window, that price may drop. You've got Benjamin Sesko if he doesn't go to Arsenal, and in addition, João Pedro has been looked at Liverpool too. So it's really more an internal conversation with several striker targets for now. Liverpool will wait for the right opportunity to move. They'll understand their budget, and probably before that number 9 comes in at Liverpool, they'll try and resolve the future of Darwin Núñez and keep an eye on Napoli in the next few days, because if they can meet Liverpool's asking price or get somewhere close, that deal is going to happen very quickly. Because at the moment, anyway, Darwin Núñez is giving preference to Napoli over suitors in Saudi Arabia.
You mentioned Napoli. Jadon Sancho has been linked to the side and Juventus. Reports state that the Serie A sides cannot meet the £250,000 weekly wages of the England winger. He walked away from Chelsea reportedly due to wages. Now, Serie A could be a good move for him, but how likely is this to happen if they can't pay him what he wants?
Yeah, you've got Napoli and Juventus who are in for Jadon Sancho. And as you rightly say, the wage is the issue, not the fee. Manchester United are prepared to honour the maximum Chelsea obligation, because it was variable, of up to £25 million. And that's the fee that will inform the Sancho club-to-club part. But you've got to add the wage on top, and it's too expensive at the moment for both Napoli and Juventus. So it's kind of all on Sancho now, because I don't sense that Manchester United, especially this early in the window, are going to bend and give somebody a loan with an option or an obligation. They did that with Chelsea. They got the player back. Okay, Manchester United got a £5 million penalty fee. So financially speaking, not too bad, but they want Sancho sold, and it's going to be on the player to find a solution. We know that the Saudi interest remains, but Sancho hasn't necessarily ever given too much encouragement to clubs that have inquired in the past. When Steven Gerrard was at Al Ittifaq, that club made a call, and not only could they not afford the Sancho demands, which probably had a bit of Saudi tax on them, but at that stage, the asking price was very high. Now Saudi will see great value in 25 million for Sancho. And if he wants the money, he can go there. But I'm not led to believe that Sancho is thinking about Saudi Arabia. We've heard reports about Fenerbahce and Sancho. And my understanding is that the Turkish club have inquired, but contrary to some suggestions in Turkey, there's been no bid. And again, even though we are seeing quite big spending on player wages and offers, whether successful or not, from Galatasaray and Fenerbahce, the reality is that those clubs would also struggle to meet Sancho's demands if he's continuing to ask for a Manchester United wage. So it's going to be down to Sancho to find a solution, but it's pretty much only Saudi that would pay him the wage he's currently on or better, and therefore a cut is going to be necessary. And I'm quite surprised that Sancho didn't agree to what was quite a strong Chelsea offer in terms of the financials. He couldn't find an agreement there, even though he's very settled at the football club and would have ideally liked to stay. And now he's in quite a difficult position because Napoli and Juventus like the player, but they're certainly not going to pay the wage that he's looking for. So it's all on Sancho now to either drop his wage, otherwise he could be in for a long summer.
Switching gears now to goalkeepers, Emi Martinez is a name that's been linked to a few clubs. A lot of Manchester United fans are desperate for him. There have been reports about a move to Chelsea. Is there anything to that?
Yeah, I'm not aware at the moment of Chelsea moving for any goalkeeper other than the Mike Maignan situation, which they're not revisiting. Chelsea are obviously at the Club World Cup at the moment. Philip Jorgensen started the last game, Robert Sanchez the first two. So Chelsea are kind of back into this mode of assessing their internal goalkeepers and trying to rank them to determine who the number one is. And then maybe later in the window, they might move. But they will be opportunistic. And although I'm not aware yet of any links or approach to Emi Martinez, we do need to keep an eye on the next 2 weeks for Emi Martinez, because if Villa are to need an outgoing for PSR purposes, then Martinez's future may be one to watch. And he did appear to wave goodbye on the last Premier League game of the season. Villa really don't want to sell Morgan Rogers, even though, again, plenty of suitors, including Chelsea, are kind of circling to understand, do Villa need a big sale? There's Saudi interest in Yuri Tielemans. Villa would love to sell Jacob Ramsey to Neom FC, but nothing is developing or advancing there at this stage. So it might all come back to Emi Martinez and potentially an exit for in excess of £30 million. But what you've got to bear in mind is, even though Martinez is more contracted than Mike Maignan, who only had 1 year left on his contract, the Chelsea perspective was 25 million for a player of Maignan's age with 1 year left on his contract was too much money. Now, if they were to revisit some kind of new goalkeeper and Emi Martinez does develop, that price is going to be even higher than Maignan, because Emi Martinez is well contracted. And as a consequence, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for Chelsea to maybe think they find value there. And they, of course, want to still give preference to their internal goalkeepers to try and assess them during the Club World Cup. And they're very busy at that tournament too. So I'm not aware yet of anything developing between Chelsea and Emi Martinez, but more broadly, it is one to watch because Premier League clubs will be aware of Villa's financial situation. We know that Emi Martinez would like a move to Manchester United, but Andre Onana hasn't been told he's leaving the football club at the moment. And until that happens, if that happens, Manchester United won't move, and it might not. Onana could just stay, and Manchester United therefore wouldn't add a new number one goalkeeper. So you've got two sort of perspectives here. The Martinez camp, who are certainly offering him around and quite aggressively, and it's very clear that Martinez would welcome a move away from Aston Villa. But you have these clubs who have got goalkeepers and number ones at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see whether any Premier League club does come in for Martinez. Keep an eye as well on Atletico Madrid, because Jan Oblak's future is open, and if he does depart, my expectation is that Atletico Madrid will also move for Emi Martinez too. So he might have options. They may come later in the window, and that's what makes this potential exit so interesting, because if Villa are to sell, they'd obviously prefer to do now and get that exit on this financial year. But a lot of the clubs looking for a number one have got to resolve the future of internal goalkeepers first. So there's a bit of a paradox between Villa's need to sell now and clubs maybe wanting to wait a bit later before they determine if they are going to bid for a new goalkeeper.
And finally, Cristiano Ronaldo has extended until summer 2027 with Al Nassr. The goal is to reach 1,000 goals in his career. I'm sure he will do that. But when do you really see him retiring? Could we see him playing until he's 50? Is that it now? Will he remain in Saudi Arabia? Could we see him pop back into Europe one day?
I don't think Europe necessarily. Whether or not he ends his career in Saudi Arabia remains to be seen. Ronaldo said very clearly that as long as his body allows, he's going to keep playing. And you're right in what you say that this first target is 1,000 goals. But I think as Ronaldo gets older, and if still physically capable, there's a fair chance he starts to look at other records. Who's the oldest outfield player in a Big Five league? Who's the oldest player that's ever played in MLS? I think there's a player perhaps in Japan whose name escapes me that ended up playing right into his 60s. So it's unlikely that he breaks that record. But Ronaldo's driven by these individual accolades. So I don't think it's a case of get to 1,000 goals and then say, job done. There might be another move. There might be another opportunity for him, but his focus is on Al Nassr for now. And the expectation is that he does both years. And the likelihood is that he gets to that 1,000 goals because it becomes 2027. You have like another interesting dynamic where World Cup's 2026. But if he's playing till summer 2027, he's only a year away from the next Euros. And this is the sort of Ronaldo perspective that as he gets within 12 months of anything that he can achieve, whether domestically or whether internationally, he starts to think, can I make that next milestone? So there is a chance that Ronaldo just keeps playing and playing and playing. And if he got to 2027, I'm sure Saudi would like him to extend again, because the new television rights deal is just being agreed now, and that cycle runs a bit longer. So if Ronaldo extends beyond 2027, that's more lucrative for the Saudi Pro League too. So we can't read into this number of 2027 as Ronaldo simply retiring. There may be more to this chapter, but at the moment he's just looking ahead to those next 2 years, and there are those two key priorities. Number one, get to 1,000 goals. Number two, play at the 2026 World Cup. And then quite interestingly, if we think about Al Nassr more broadly, they're searching for a new manager now because Pioli has left. Ronaldo's contract renewal gives him equity in Al Nassr as well. So he's got more of a vested interest than ever. And he's going to play a massive part in Al Nassr's summer recruitment to try and challenge for the Saudi Pro League. And in doing so, get that club back to where they feel they belong. Because although Ronaldo's numbers have been outstanding in Saudi Arabia, Al Nassr haven't really won that much. And therefore, they're going to have a big push now. Keep an eye on the Luis Diaz situation. He's Al Nassr's top target on that left-hand side. Liverpool don't want to sell. But if an offer comes at between 85 and 100 million euros, you never know. They might change their mind, and it will all depend on Diaz if he wants to move to Saudi Arabia. Mohamed Kudus is another target, and he has a release clause specific to Saudi Arabia of about £120 million. So Al Nassr are going to be really active once we get into July, and part of Cristiano Ronaldo staying and having equity in the club is not just about these personal numbers. He's also going to have a huge role in recruitment, and Al Nassr are going to be one of the biggest spenders, in my opinion, from Saudi Arabia over the course of the next 2 months.
Well, there you have it, Ben. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the talkSPORT YouTube channel. Let us know your thoughts on all of that transfer news. And remember, the window will be back soon to keep you up to date with the latest rumours, done deals and everything in between.